everyone, it's me Shanty and you're watching Biology Nowadays. In this video, we will learn about the tissues, mainly the meristematic tissues. As in the case of external or morphological features, internal features of plants also show similarities and variations. For example, different organs in a plant show differences in their internal structure. Differences can be noted between the dicots and monocots coming under angiosperms. So, studying internal features can help us distinguish different plant groups like dicots, monocots and gymnosperms. Another benefit of studying plant internal structure is that it will help us to understand the structural adaptations of plants with respect to diverse environmental conditions. For example, in the cross section of this lotus stem, you can see air spaces. This is a structural adaptation seen in aquatic plants. These air spaces help in the internal circulation of air. They also help in floating of the plant parts. The study of internal structure of plants is called plant anatomy or phytotomy. And the most important tool for anatomical studies is a microscope. Usually, thin sections of the plant organs are taken and are observed under a microscope. I had done some wood anatomical studies during my PhD in the University of Göttingen, Germany. Here is a picture of me in front of the microscope. What you see in the monitor is the cross section of the secondary xylem or wood. Anatomical studies are quite interesting because under the microscope it's an entirely different world which you cannot see with your naked eyes. I used to spend a lot of time at the microscope gazing with full of amazement at the wonderful designs of nature. Okay, let's move on. As you know, plants have cells as the basic unit, or in other words, a plant body usually consists of many cells. We have already learned about the structure of a typical plant cell. It has a cell wall, a true well-defined nucleus, a large central vacuole, chloroplast, and various other cell organelles. But all the cells in a plant don't have this typical look. This is because in a plant there are different types of cells carrying out different functions. For example, there are a group of cells carrying out water transport, there are some other group of cells that conduct food, and there are some other group of cells for conducting photosynthesis. So, the shape, size and contents of plant cells vary according to their functions. The cells performing common functions are organized into tissues. For example, xylem tissue. The common function of cells in the xylem tissue is mainly water transport, or at least help in water transport. Different kinds of tissues associate into tissue systems. For example, xylem and phloem, which are two different tissues, together form the vascular tissue system. Different tissue systems associate into organs. For example, stem, leaves, roots. Different organs form organ systems, and organ systems finally form an organism. Now, let's learn about tissues in detail. A tissue is a group of cells having a common origin and usually performing a common function. Study of tissues is called histology. There are different kinds of tissues in a plant. Based on whether the cells in the tissues are capable of dividing or not, tissues are classified into two main groups. The first one is the meristematic tissues, which consist of young, actively dividing cells. They divide and re-divide continuously and form new cells. But as the cell division proceeds, some of the older cells lose their capacity for cell division and get matured. They form the second group of tissues called the permanent tissues. So we can say that permanent tissues are derived from the meristematic tissues. They are also called mature tissues and they do not divide. In this video, we will see meristematic tissues in detail. You know that plants produce tissues and organs until they die. Actually, this is due to meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissues are also called as meristems. The word meristem is derived from the Greek word meristos, meaning divided. As I mentioned earlier, meristematic tissues or meristems are tissues composed of young and actively dividing cells. The cells in the meristems are called meristematic cells. This is a picture of the meristematic tissue found in roots. Here you can also see some cells undergoing cell division. Since meristematic cells divide frequently, they have thin cell walls, abundant protoplasm, and a prominent nucleus. In meristems, vacuoles are absent. This is because large vacuoles will pose difficulty in cell division, and moreover, main function of vacuoles is to store nutrients, excess salts, etc. But in the case of meristematic cells, they use all their food to obtain energy for cell growth and division. Hence, they do not have extra food to store, and that's why they lack vacuoles. If vacuoles are present, they will be very small. Plants have different kinds of meristems. On the basis of position, meristems are classified into apical meristems found at the apices or tips of the plant, then intercalary meristem found intercalated or between the permanent tissues, and finally the lateral meristems found along the sides of the plant. First of all, the apical meristems. They are present at the stem and root tips or apices, and that's why the name apical meristems. In the root apical meristem is protected by a structure called root cap. The apical meristems bring about growth in length of shoot as well as root. This increase in length of shoot and root is called primary growth, during which primary tissues are formed. The plant body composed of primary tissues is called the primary plant body. Now let's suppose that I remove the top part of the stem or the shoot apical meristem of a plant. What will happen? The side branches will grow out and the plant will continue to grow. However, its growth in length will be compromised a lot. But take the example of grasses. Even if you cut them, after a few days, they will regrow to attain more height. Here the growth in length is not compromised. What's the secret behind it? Why is the growth in length not affected in this case? The answer is that they have intercalary meristems. Intercalary meristems are the meristems intercalated or found in between the permanent tissues. They are seen only in monocots. For example, at the base of the nodes and leaf blades of the grasses. A node is the point of attachment of leaves, flowers or branches. Intercalary meristems at the nodes of bamboo allow for rapid stem elongation through the elongation of internodes. Internode means the stem region between two nodes. By the way, did you know that bamboos are also grasses? Actually, they are the tallest grasses. Okay, back to intercalary meristem. The intercalary meristems found at the base of most grass leaf blades allow damaged leaves to rapidly regrow. This leaf regrowth in grasses evolved in response to damage by grazing herbivores. You must have noted that many plants like gymnosperms and dicots show increase in thickness after a short period of their growth. This is due to the lateral meristems. Lateral meristems are the meristems that are present along the sides of the stem and roots. They appear only when plant parts mature. They are cylindrical meristems. Examples for this kind of meristems are the fascicular cambium, interfascicular cambium and cord cambium. During the secondary growth, the fascicular and interfascicular cambium fuse together to form a continuous ring of meristematic tissue called the vascular cambium. The vascular cambium produces secondary xylem or wood towards its inner side and secondary phloem or the inner bark towards its outer side. Cork cambium produces cork, which is a tough protective material. All these will result in the increase in thickness called secondary thickening. Lateral meristems occur in gymnosperms, and among angiosperms it is seen only in dicots. Based on the origin, meristems are classified into primary and secondary meristems. The meristems originating from the embryonic cells are known as primary meristems. Examples are apical meristem, intercalary meristem and fascicular cambium. They mainly give rise to the permanent tissues of the primary plant body, or let's say they give rise to the primary tissues. Fascicular cambium is actually a primary meristem, as it is formed at the time of embryonic growth itself. But during the secondary growth of plants, it will combine with interfascicular cambium, forming vascular cambium, which will produce secondary tissues. Let's see what are secondary meristems. We already learned that normally the permanent tissues do not divide, but during the secondary growth or thickening in plants, some permanent cells regain the ability for cell division and will become meristematic tissues. So we can say that secondary meristems are the meristems derived from the permanent tissue by acquiring the capacity for cell division later. Examples are interfascicular cambium, cork cambium and cambium of root. In the upcoming videos, we will learn in detail how these tissues are formed from the permanent tissues. Secondary meristems are actually the lateral meristems, and they produce secondary tissues in plants, which will result in the thickening. And that's all for this video. By the way, I already mentioned that the study of tissues is called histology. But can you tell me which branch of biology deals with the study of cells? Type in your answer as comment. Thank you very much and stay tuned.